Hello and welcome back to Mark's House and Garden UK. I've just invested last month's YouTube money in these yew trees. They were spirals, but they've been let go a little bit and they're starting to look like pyramids, but I am going to get them back to spirals eventually. Let me show you something. Let me just snip this label off here. I always go to the clearance section in the garden centres, and there's no way could I afford to buy those full price. It says on here that they were originally £260, but they were reduced to £100 each. So I snapped them up. Right, in this video I'm going to talk about Yew Tree Care. I'm not an expert on yew trees, but I know that they're quite low maintenance if you treat them correctly. So I've done some research. I'm going to share the findings of that research in this video as I plant these yew trees up into these pots. Massive planters, and you can see they're going to take a lot of compost. Let me lift one out. Very heavy actually. I'm putting them in the planters because I want to make a feature of them and I want to lift them up and keep some of the height, but that is going to take quite a lot of compost. Now if I were doing this in the ground it would be a different matter, but in this pot I need to enhance the drainage, and the other thing I need to do is make sure that the pots are in the right place before I start work, because there's no way am I going to be able to move these pots once they're planted up. Right, let me tell you what I'm going to do first to enhance the drainage, and the finer points of Yew Tree Care will come out in this video as I'm speaking to you, but I will also type them up in the description box below this video. The first thing I'm going to do is, because these have been put in pots and been sat in pots for some time, I'm going to give them a really good soaking. So I'm going to plunge them in a big pail of water for about an hour so that they're fully hydrated before we start work. Now I know I'm repeating myself, but these are very heavy plants and they're not going to get any lighter when they've been soaked in water, so I'm doing everything near the planters. So let me just get the pot off there and get it plunged, and that will sit there for a good hour until it gets hydrated. Now when you think about yew trees, think fertile, moist, but well drained. It's a very forgiving plant. They can live 900 years, these, so they must be forgiving, otherwise they wouldn't live that long. But they do not want wet roots. If you've got clay soil, you must do something to enhance the drainage of your soil beneath your yew tree. Right, in pots they also need well drained soil, but they may also need feeding. Right, now this is a big pot and you may think this is OCD, but I am using a spirit level to get it level before I plant into it, because it's so big, anything that's not level will show up more. So I just want to make that perfectly level. The other thing is, if that wasn't sat on gravel, I would do something to lift it off the ground so that the water could drain away from it. It's sat on gravel, which means that it will be free draining, but I'm also going to do something else inside this pot to help the drainage. Let me explain. Now, at the bottom of these two pots, there are two holes for drainage, which is wonderful and absolutely necessary. It's got to be able to drain. But if I put soil or compost straight into there, those holes would soon block up. So I'm going to do something. I've got here two pieces of terracotta plant pot. You can see they're slightly convexed in shape. So I'm going to place those over the holes. So that will have the effect of letting the water get to them, but not the soil. But I'm not going to stop there. I have a bucket of gravel here. This is 10mm gravel. I'm going to put a layer of gravel on top of those crocks. And then on top of the gravel, I'm going to put a double layer of horticultural fleece. So it will effectively have its own little soak away. The water can get through this, but the soil can't. So the water will get through there, through the gravel, underneath those crocks and out of the holes. Remember, fertile, moist, but well-drained soil. If these sit in wet soil, they will get root rot, which is caused by a bacteria. and it's very difficult to cure once you've got it. Okay, the other thing to remember about yew trees, which I will tell you whilst I'm doing this, is that all parts of the plant are poisonous, especially to domestic pets. I shall be quiet while this pours in because the microphone will pick up the noise. I now have a 2-inch layer of gravel on top of the crocks in this pot. So getting back to the point about them being poisonous, if you've got dogs or cats or children, they're actually poisonous to humans as well. And be very careful when it comes to pruning, especially the berries. Okay, let me just show you inside here so you can get a good idea of what I can see. Down in here, those are the 2 crocks there. They are buried under 2 inches of coarse gravel. And of course the next thing to do is apply a layer of horticultural fleece on top. And this is where the planting medium will be placed, so I can put soil or compost on top of that now. Right, so the pots are level. And just to reiterate, drainage holes, crocks, gravel, membrane, and I can now start to put some compost on top of there. And I will also be adding some slow release because these are in a pot. It's a limited resource, so if I can just put some slow release in there, it'll get me an extra couple of years before I have to repot. And there are things I can do to help these keep going in pots, and I'll talk about those in a moment. But for now, I just want to get some compost in the bottom. Now, remember, fertile, moist, well drained. So I want to be able to soak these whenever I need to. So I'm only going to fill the pots to about 2 inches below the top. And I'm not going to plant these any deeper than they were originally planted. So I need to be very careful not to overfill. There's always a temptation to fill your pot right up to the top because you think, oh, well, it'll give it more food. Well, it's a false economy because you can't get the water in. Right, let's get some of this compost into the bottom. Now, compost is not cheap, but I'll have these plants for years to come, and they'll probably be in these pots for another 3 or 4 years before I need to do anything. So there's half a bag going in the first one. I'm just going to level that out, and then I'm going to sprinkle in some of this slow release and then give it a good mix. So we've got a nice base layer there. And if I measure approximately the depth of the root ball to the depth of the remainder of the pot that's not full, I think I'm about right. So the next thing I'm going to do is get this pre-soaked yew tree into here. Now, I did mention that I'll get these back into spirals, and it will, but I won't be doing any pruning this year. I'll be letting these get some good roots established before I do any pruning. The nice thing about yew is it grows back from old wood. It's not like a conifer. If you cut a conifer into old wood, it won't grow back. A yew is very forgiving. You can cut a yew tree back to its trunk and it will still sprout out little green shoots. So what I'm going to do with these is get them in, get them established, get them growing. And then when I see signs of fresh growth, I'll know that they've got good roots. And then I can think about getting the shape back. But it's a game of patience, this. Right, let's get this up and over into here. I'm going to use my knees on this. I know it's going to be very heavy, so I'm going to use my knees and try and lift it. And I might make a lot of noise when I'm doing it. So, in it goes. It's a little bit lower than I would have liked, so it's going to come out again. And I'm going to add more compost. There's about a foot of space, sorry, 6 inches of space there. So I need to get more compost underneath it. I don't want it that down, deep down the pot. Right, out you come. Back into the plunge. And in we go. And another half a bag. Right, whilst we're on the matter, might as well put a few more of these in. What happened there, I think, was it compressed. When I put the weight of the tree in, it compressed it down. So, a few more of these in. you're going to use those as a top dress going forwards. And talking of going forwards, in order to make sure that this plant does get nourishment, what I can do is I can do several things. I can take tubes of compost out and fill them back up with fresh compost. I can take the top off and top dress it with fresh compost, and I can keep applying slow release to the top as a top dress. Right, let's get it back in again. And it's still not quite enough, so we're going to go in with some more, and I estimate that it will have been 1.5 bags below the plant before I've even started filling up the sides. And I've gone for the most expensive compost I can afford, because it would be a false economy to buy the cheap stuff. I want it to provide nutrients for this yew tree in a pot, and I'll be getting value out of this for years to come. Right, let's get another layer underneath. And that's about right now. If I put my level across here, you can see there's space above the ground surface there to soak it. What I'm going to do to water this is I'm going to drench it, and I'm going to let it almost dry out in between watering. Only if it shows definite signs of distress will I water this. So I will let it dry out almost between each watering and then give it a good drenching. And that will be the pattern of watering it. I will not water it in the winter time when it's not growing, because it will go into dormancy. Right, I have here a scrapey hand tool. I'm going to get in there and just damage the roots a little bit, break them up so that they're not going round in a circle. With a pot-bound plant, the roots may well be growing around in a circle, and we want to encourage them to grow out and look out for pastures, new, fresh soil, fresh nutrients. Right, that will do that job nicely, and I will remove any weeds that are on the top, like that one. Now, before I backfill this, I want to make sure it's central, and I also want to make sure it's vertical. So a good tip when you're trying to verticalize a plant is to step away from it and look at it from a distance, because only then can you get a good idea if it's vertical or not. And I'm happy with that, so I'm now going to backfill it with compost. Hopefully it won't take too much, but I will get the compost just up to the pre-existing ground level, and then I'm going to use a jug and this tub of water to give it a really good soaking, so that will wash the compost in and around those roots that I've just teased, and then they will be stimulated into growth. The roots will start growing immediately. It's March, it's springtime, we've got lots of warmth. They will be stimulated by the damage. Right, let's get it filled up, and then there'll be one final thing I'm going to do just to finish the job off. So there's one planted up, just got one final thing to do, and then I'll get on with the other, and I will show you some footage of them both planted up at the end of this video. This is golden gravel, the same colour as what's on the ground here, and it's going to serve several purposes. This, it will act as a ballast to keep it bedded in, it will suppress weeds, it looks great, and it will retain moisture once this gravel is on top. Another little sprinkling of these, a little bit more water, and then I can wait until it starts showing signs of growth, and then I can start thinking about pruning it. And you normally prune yew either in the spring or autumn, so I'm not going to do anything other than keep this well watered for the summertime, and then we'll review the situation towards the end of the year. I can start enjoying them immediately because they already look quite nice anyway. Hope you've enjoyed that. Don't forget, I'll put the Yew Care tips in the description box below this video. And also don't forget that very soon you will be able to sign up to my off YouTube newsletter, which will have hints and tips and advice and all those discount codes which I keep getting sent by product providers. Right, I'll get finished and I'll show you some footage, and I'll see you soon for some more Yew Tree Care adventures. Bye for now.